Hey everyone, welcome to Financial Revelations. I'm your host, David Szafranski. I know I said there would be a broadcast last week, but I was in Mexico, and to be honest, the weather was so nice, I just couldn't get myself to show you that beautiful weather while it was 20 degrees here. I felt bad for you guys. So I was really doing you a favor by not doing a podcast last week, and um, so it's this week, and here we are. Of course, you can always call here, 1-800-344-2534. I want you to get a copy of my book, The Sin of Retirement. You can get it on Amazon, and there's also an ebook, and there's an audio book, and you can also get it at my website, sinofretirement.com. Corey's going to put that running below me. And if you go to sinofretirement.com, you can also get some merch. You can get some hats, you can get some buttons, you can get some refrigerator magnets. My favorite thing on there is a hat and a cup that say, I suck at investing. And you really need that hat. There's also Gulf of America shirts on there. You need that shirt. When I was in Mexico, I did take my Gulf of America shirt. It wasn't received poorly, let me say that. It was, I think, people were being nice, but we're also going to the Amazon in March. And if you want to support it, you can't go on this trip because the trip is full. But if you want to go on the trip, if you want to support the trip, go to nativosusa.org. Corey's also going to put that website up. And we're revamping the website. We're adopting our own 501c3. We were under somebody before this. We're going to have our own 501c3. Some big things are going on with Nativos. I think you'll really like the changes. I love the changes. And we're going to be able to support a few ministries that operate in the Amazon River Basin there people that we know, like, and trust, that we've known them for years. You know, one of the things that it's critical to me, it's absolutely critical, is that if I ask somebody to give their money to something, that the money's going to that something, not to cars, houses, boats, and, well, we have a boat, so some of the money does go to a boat, but it's a mission boat. But, not the things of luxury. It doesn't pay for my trip. I pay for my trip. We raise money to pay for other people's trips under the guise of, hey, this is going to help support people going. And so all the money that we raise for the mission, 100% goes to the mission. We got outside funding for the 501c3, the website, all that stuff is paid for by other people, and none of the mission money has gone to that. So technically, 100% of the money goes to the mission, and that's what it might not always be 100%. It might be like 97 because there are some costs involved in running the website, but we're going to try and get that paid outside. So all of the money that we raise actually goes to help people in the Amazon, the indigenous people, via water wells, delivering the gospel. There's this a Christmas thing that they do, our church in Mount Wes does, and we probably served 250 kids that would not have gotten any Christmas gifts or anything. Nothing special for Christmas, and there was a special Christmas service for them, and part of the children's church operation, and everybody got a gift addressed to that child. And it's kind of like an angel tree thing, but for the Amazon. There's a lot of single parent households, there's a lot of poverty there, and so we're able to support things like that. We really want to do that. We want to build into people's lives. So if you want to be part of that, Nativos USA. There's another trip going in May, and you could go on that trip if you want, and then we'll be going again next year. If you're interested in going on that trip, I need your name early, because the trips are just filling up. We can only take so many people, and they're going to fill up. So, of course, it's a new year. And while I was over the weekend, I had gotten back on New Year's Day from Cancun, and airports were packed. The plane was packed. There wasn't an empty seat on the plane from Cancun direct flight from Cleveland. That's probably why. But over the weekend, we took out the leader of, and arrested the leader of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro. And, as I was watching the markets, I woke up Saturday morning to this happening. Was it Saturday? Saturday night it happened, right? Yeah. As that happened, I started looking at the futures and I thought, okay, markets probably get rocked on this news. The exact opposite. The markets are up. The Dow is up over 1% today. The NASDAQ and the S&P 500 up a little bit less than 1%, like 0.82%, but definitely pointing to the high side. The other important thing is that the measure of risk, the VIX, the VIX, the VIX index, is way down. Way down. Now, it is true that the first reaction in the market is not always the right one. And we see this a lot when there's an interest rate decision or something like that. But I love this decision that they made to do this. For one thing, Maduro and his wife have been under indictment in New York for drug trafficking and other things for, I think it's 5 years, but it might be 7 years. But I'm somewhere between 5 and 7 years. We've had them indicted. We wanted to arrest them. If other presidents had done this, it would have taken 300,000 troops in 10 years. Donald Trump did it in the middle of the night. Nobody got hurt that I know of. I don't think any of our soldiers got hurt. I don't know what happened to them on the ground. I've heard some reports, but I don't know that they're trustworthy. But we got in, we got them, and then we got out. And we have this ongoing oil embargo against them for any ships that are sanctioned. So they're not going to be able to sell their oil. They're going to have to play ball with us. Now, I want you to realize something. And this is really important. We framed this not as we're trying to get a better life for the Venezuelan people. We did not frame it that way. That's always a lie, by the way. They said, no, this is for America. This is so that America be safe. This is for us. And the Venezuelan people will benefit. Venezuela, at one time, this is 25 years ago, was the wealthiest nation in the Western Hemisphere, Venezuela. They were educated, they had health care, they had 25 cents a gallon gas, because they're a major oil producer. They were wealthy. And when Hugo Chavez took over, he repatriated, he basically nationalized all of the oil assets, and their oil industry fell apart because there was no profit motive in it anymore. Now, it is true. I've been to Trinidad and Tobago. Don't ever go there. I'm telling you right now. It sounds like it'd be a great place, and maybe someday it will be, but right now it's not. Don't go there. But we did go there. Tobago is the place where people go on vacation, but the oil industry has a really bad name there. And they took advantage of people. They killed the reefs through pollution, just not caring for the environment. Now, I'm not a global warmist. I'm not a eco-fascist. I'm not an eco-terrorist like these global warming people are, eco-psychos. But I want a clean environment just like everybody else. I want to drink clean water. And when we went there, we could see the damage that had been done, and consequently, there was a lot of anti-American sentiment there, and anti-British sentiment, because those are the companies that came there, and so we want to be clean. We can develop energy and be very, very clean about it. The technology that we have now is extraordinary. So Venezuela was one of these countries that was so rich. They had everything. They had everything going for them. It was cosmopolitan. Caracas was a very cosmopolitan place. And then when Chavez took over and communism laid the warmth of collectivism, people started freezing to death. You freeze to death in the warmth of collectivism, even though it's a hot climate. So they had no food. They had no medicine. People are dying in Venezuela because they cannot get open heart surgery? No, not that. They can't get insulin. We actually offered to provide all the insulin that they needed, and Maduro turned it down. He's letting his own people die. Now, we can't save everybody in the world. I get that. But one of the reasons, some of the reasons we went over there is because they're dumping drugs here, and Colombia uses them as a trade route to boats that bring about 30% of the drugs that they create are brought here, and fentanyl comes here, and a lot of people die from that. There's been, like in 2024 rather, there were 300,000 overdoses in America. 300,000. That's a lot. That's an attack on our sovereignty. They're dumping. They emptied their prisons and dumped people here. Tren de la Agua. We all know these things. Okay, so the first market response, not always the best, but I love this market response, and I hope it goes on. There's a lot about like the week after is what I think about. So now what happens? We have a tremendous amount of leverage there. And I read an article this morning where the vice president of Venezuela is now playing ball with us. And she just saw what happened. She knows that she could be next. She doesn't want to be next. And so they're going to play ball. And hopefully we could stabilize the country enough to where they're not sending their prisoners or drugs here. We get the rule of law back, have free and fair elections, and watch them prosper over the next several years as the oil industry is rebuilt, probably by American and British companies. So that's what I'd like to see what happen. I'd love to see that happen there. I'd love to see people get wealthy. There's nothing wrong with people around us getting wealthy. I love it. It really brings out the best in people because they have a chance at a better life. And that's what people want. Most people are honest people. And I have found this, that when you run across an actual criminal, like a lifelong criminal, if they had worked that hard at an honest day's living, they probably would have done just as well or better and not had the risk of a prison sentence. But most people just want to do well. They want to do better. They want to make money. They want to give their kids a fighting chance. They want to get educated. They want to have a job that they can be proud of. And hopefully those things can happen. Now, we didn't do it just for that. Did you know that in Venezuela, in Caracas, that day, so they had meetings that day, they were going to have meetings again Saturday, was a Chinese delegation. Yeah. And they were, of course, Venezuela's communists. So they're cozying up to who? Communists like Russia, China, Iran. Iran had a drone manufacturing facility there on the military base we attacked. Guess what happened to that building? Doesn't exist anymore. Thank you, U.S. military. So China and Russia are using Venezuela to foment chaos in the United States. And it's important to realize that communists don't care what the chaos is. That's why the Russian disinformation campaign, the Russiagate thing, was the greatest disinformation campaign that Russia has ever put on, and it only cost them $200,000. It was the most successful intelligence operation probably in the history of mankind because of what it did in the United States, the chaos that it created here, and that's all they care about. They just care that you're occupied on something other than them. And I have these Ukrainian friends that go to the Amazon with me, and it's very insightful to talk to them about how Russians think and why Russians think the way they do. Russians earnestly believe that somebody's going to come by and take everything that they own and put them in jail. And why do they think that? Because over time, people have come along and taken everything they own and thrown them in jail, never to be seen again. And so they have this mentality that they have to take your stuff before you take their stuff. And it's real. And so Venezuela is cozying up to all these ne'er-do-wellers that really have nothing but our worst interest in mind. And this takes that out of play totally. It's the Monroe Doctrine back in spades. The Monroe Doctrine was, in our hemisphere, we control what goes on. The Monroe Doctrine says, in our hemisphere, we're the boss. You're not going to come from China or Russia or Iran and influence our hemisphere. We're going to do that, and if you try and do it here, we're going to deal with you. So we've seen South America making this great shift to the right politically. It started with Argentina and Ecuador and other countries in South America. My friend, who's a reporter for the Wall Street Journal, says she believes that Brazil is next. Brazilians are sick and tired of corruption. It's going to take a generation to get rid of all the political graft in Brazil, just like it would here with the Somalis. And, there's a Somali operation in Ohio. There's a Somali operation in Minnesota. The governor of Minnesota today just bowed out of his reelection campaign. Thank you, Nick Shirley, for exposing that, because the mainstream press was never going to do it. So Brazil has rampant corruption. Lula, their president, has been in prison before, convicted, ran again, won. There's a right-wing candidate who does not talk about social issues, just economics. He's probably going to win. You're watching this continent move to the right, accept capitalism, which is better for everybody. Capitalism has dragged more people out of poverty than any system. In fact, socialism and communism are so good, you have to build a wall to keep people in it because everybody wants to escape. Just talk to the people of West Berlin. When the wall fell, which direction did people run? Do you think they ran to the east? I don't think so. So this operation in Venezuela has a lot more to do than just with Maduro. It has to do with the Monroe Doctrine, and it has to do with the shift to the right in South America, which is going to be very profitable for everybody, especially people who live in South America. Now, you realize I go to Brazil a lot. I go at least once or twice a year. I've been to Rio. I've been to Belo. I've been up north. I've been to Iguazu down south. I was in Argentina before Milei got elected, and my lovely wife and I went out to dinner, and they said, if you pay with dollars, it's a 50% discount on dinner. And the reason for that was they longed for hard currency so badly because their currency was junk. Toilet paper was worth more than their currency because inflation was so bad, because government creates inflation. It's not the free market that creates inflation. So you're watching this happen. This is an extraordinary moment in history. And by the way, Donald Trump has been president for less than 1 year. We have essentially secured the southern border. There's nobody coming over the southern border. We have net negative immigration because people are sending themselves home. They're self-deporting. I had an Uber driver in Cancun who said, well, I lived in the United States for 10 years, but I came back 6 months ago. I didn't want to ask why, because I didn't want to be, I wanted to be cordial. He was a very nice person. But if you're not a citizen, you got to come here legally, and that's the only way to do it. We have the rule of law here. That's what we have. The rule of law says you could have a group of people that could easily storm a building, but if there's one police officer there saying you can't do that, we listen. That's the rule of law. It's sometimes enforcing the unseen. Obviously the mob could overtake people, but we don't do that because we believe in the rule of law. And it starts at our borders. If the first thing that you do when you come here is break the law, we don't want you. We can't have you and you can't stay. Now, if you want to come here legally, we're all for that. We love that. But you got to do it legally. I think this year is going to be a great year. This year is just getting better by the moment. As I look at the investment landscape, we're going to be in a lower interest rate environment. We have high profit margins for the companies that are driving the market. AI is just starting. We're like in the infancy of this chip manufacturing boom that we're going through. And consumers are spending money. The fourth quarter GDP was 4.3%. They thought it was going to be 2%. There is more of that coming. This is going to be, I was telling somebody this morning, Donald Trump might be the greatest president we've ever had. Now, I know the left won't appreciate that, and they're, if he cured cancer, they'd find a reason why that was a bad idea. But that's just politics. It's a blood sport. Politics is a blood sport. You got to get used to it. Just roll with it. Don't worry about what the left says. The things that I want you to focus on in this year is run a budget. Make sure that you're spending less than what you make. Make sure that you're investing. Make sure that you're saving. Make sure that you're paying your credit cards off every month. If you can't pay your credit cards off, alarm bell should be going off in your head. But I think, if there continues to be higher than average inflation, which I think it probably will continue for a little bit longer, but we're getting closer to the mark of 2% or less, and I think it should be less by the end of the year. But in high inflation environments, or higher inflation environments, the people who win are the people who own. That's why inflation is so insidious, because the people that it hurts the worst are the ones that can least afford it. So when inflation was really high, the market was skyrocketing, my house value was skyrocketing, my other real estate was skyrocketing. I won. I won at every phase. I had money in a money market. My emergency fund's in a money market earning 4.5%. Again, I won. If you live paycheck to paycheck and you don't invest in your 401k and you're a renter, you didn't win. You lost. You're behind the 8 ball now. That's why you gotta invest. And I don't even care if it's like $20 a month. Everybody has $20 a month in their budget. I guarantee it, you do. And if you're a smoker, you have like $250 a month in your budget. All you gotta do is quit. It's a good time to have that New Year's resolution, by the way. You gotta own things. You gotta own things. That's how you win in inflation. That's how you win, is you become part of the ownership class. Get out of the poverty mindset and start saving. Okay, what does that mean? It means that you make sacrifices now so that you can have things later. Could I be driving a Lamborghini right now? Yeah, of course I could. One, it would be hard to slip that car by my wife. She would definitely notice it. But do I need I don't need a Lamborghini. I mean, they're great cars. I know people that own them, and that's fine for them. It's great. I don't need one. I'd rather save for the future. I'd rather build into the business. I'd rather do other things. That's where I want you to be. I am David Szafranski, a real American, a true red-blooded patriot, and the voice you can trust.